How's it going, everyone? Welcome to a very special video. On this day 5 years ago, I created this YouTube channel. First of all, like how 2019 is 5 years ago is completely beyond me. That doesn't sound right at all, but here we are in 2024. The one big thing I want to say is a huge thank you to everyone who has stuck with me on this channel. Whether you're a new fan or you've been here all 5 years, thank you so much, everybody. Content creation is pretty much my job right now, which is absolutely amazing, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. I think this 5-year anniversary is a good chance for me to launch channel memberships. I've been working on this behind the scenes for a while. Basically, a membership is a completely optional but really effective way to support me and my content. For a very low price, every month you can get these cool emojis to use on the channel, a badge next to your name, and all kinds of other perks as well. Again, this is 100% optional, and it's not going to change anything about the content here on the channel. It's just an extra way that you could support me if you choose to do so and help me keep pursuing this as my job. Okay, with all that said, let's get into the Q&A section of this video. You guys sent me some amazing questions. While I respond to these questions, I'm just going to play some random Geoguesser game in the background so you guys have something else to look at, but absolutely feel free to just tab out and listen to my answers here. Sort of treat it like a podcast if you want. I'm gonna go for the Geoguesser questions first here. So Elaine asked me what my thoughts are about the upcoming official competition, the qualifiers, regional, the format, and am I auto-qualified because I competed last year? The answer is yes. I was given a slot in the regional qualifiers for the Americas, which are happening in February, so 1 month from now. This is the first time we've had sort of regional events like this in Geoguesser, so I'm really interested to see how it goes when I'm there in person, and also just to see who's gonna qualify and be there with me, so I'm really excited about it. Slither asked me how I feel about going back to Stockholm for it. I'm really excited. I cannot believe I'm going to be back in Stockholm so soon, but it's going to be great. Stockholm in February should be quite the cold experience, but I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to meet some more people in the community as well. French Citizen asked me if I could add one country to Street View, what would I add? It's such a good question. I've always thought about this. I would probably go for China, something big like that. So much natural beauty, amazing cities, diverse landscapes. I think China would be amazing, but odds are we won't ever see that, not for a while at least. On the other side of this, a couple people asked me if I could remove a country from Street View, what would it be? And honestly, I don't know that I've ever even thought about this. I want all Street View countries to keep existing. I guess my answer would be to get rid of anything taken using the low quality camera, referred to as shit cam. Really annoying, and I just don't get why Google doesn't care about the low image quality. It especially makes no sense because they've gone to Finland with this camera, where they have Gen 4. Get rid of all the shit cam. Bring Gen 4 back. 8U asked me if I have a favorite antenna. My answer to this is kind of random, but I really like the red car long antenna coverage in Belgium. That's just so random, and I think people sometimes confuse it with Ukraine, which is really great. Just kind of obscure, a little bit hard to find these days with all the Gen 4, but yeah, that's my favorite. What's my favorite official trekker? Another great question. Immediately, the Vanuatu coverage by the volcano comes to mind. That's really cool coverage. Probably that, or like the Mount Everest trekker, something like that. Really hardcore coverage. That's super cool. Ice Pelican asked me if I prefer Midway Bird or a big beef cow. The answer here is obviously a big beef cow. How can I not choose that? Guys, get this man some Discord Nitro, okay? Speaking of big beef cow, Plushcap asks if I like cows or if I like eating beef, and then a real question, why did I start playing Geoguesser? To the first part, yes, I love cows, and beef is probably one of my favorite foods. A good steak with like some Roquefort or chimichurri, amazing. As for why I started playing Geoguesser though, that's a great question. I honestly don't even know when I found the game exactly. I know that I made my account in May 2017. That would have been the tail end of my sophomore year of high school. Yeah, right before the school year ended. So I must have been just bored in class and I made my account. I've always absolutely loved geography, and so I'm sure when I found Geoguesser or heard about it, I was like, this is the greatest game ever. Speaking of cows again, Cow asks if I have any tips for someone who's just starting to play Geo, and how do I retain the knowledge that I've already learned? Love the vids. Thank you very much, Cow. My number one tip, as always, is just to thrust yourself into the community. Hop into Discord servers, be active on people's Twitch streams. If you surround yourself by all these people who are constantly talking about Geoguesser, you will pick up on stuff really quickly. We have our own Discord server for the channel, and then of course check out Plunkett.net, amazing guides over there for a lot of different countries. In terms of me retaining all the knowledge that I have, I honestly don't even know. I've played the game so much that it becomes like second nature, just like remembering some poles and bollards and stuff. That speaks to the nature of the game though. I think anyone can get good at Geoguesser. You just have to put in the time and just practice. Practice makes perfect, as they say. It's a cliche, but it is really true, especially for a memorization game like this. Prophet asked me what's the prettiest country I've seen on Geoguesser, either Norway or New Zealand. There was one New Zealand round I had a few weeks ago on stream, which was just insane. It took my breath away. What is my favorite Geoguesser map? Another really good question. What immediately comes to mind here are maps like Skewed World. I love practicing on Skewed World, and then Arbitrary World, a great casual map to play for world map stuff. And then maps I've had a hand in creating myself, like Community USA. I was one of the project leaders for that, and I'm super proud of all the work that went into that one. And then also Flooded World, which is a map that our community has worked on for years now. What's my favorite ice cream flavor? Ben & Jerry's fish food. So good. Speaking of Flooded World, Geoguesser asks what inspired me to create that, and essentially I just found a random location where the car drove through water. I think it was somewhere in Italy. I saved the location because I thought it was cool, and then I found another one like it in Mexico, and then that got me thinking, like, what if I can just make a map of all these spots where the car drove through water? So as I kept playing, I just saved a bunch of locations. Finally, I had 5, which was the minimum to make a map. I made the map, and the rest is history. We've just been looking for flooded locations, places the car has gone through water for many years now in the community. It's a collaborative, ongoing project, and I'm super proud of it. What's my favorite obscure Geoguesser meta? Oh, that's such a good question. Thinking of stuff close to home, there's a weird white, like, pickup truck coverage by the Mississippi River in Iowa and Illinois, and it's super obscure. People don't really know about it. If you haven't ever seen it before, it's really niche, really strange. There's also weird trekkers in the Chicagoland area of people, like, on lawnmowers, which is really weird. Things like that, where it's just bizarre trekkers. Like, why do they exist? That usually is my favorite kind of obscure thing. If 3763 asking the tough questions, have I ever considered quitting the game? The answer is yes, I have. To be completely honest, I've thought about this a lot, more from a practical standpoint of it's getting to the point where there are so many metas and just obscure things that the level of practice it takes to maintain a high level of skill is absurd. In that sense, the amount of time I want to dedicate to making videos for the channel and other things like that, like, I just don't have much time to practice Geoguesser, and that's kind of been the name of the game for me forever. The only time I really even get to practice is when I'm making videos or streaming. Like, outside of that, I just don't really practice much. Along the same lines here, what is my Geoguesser peak and what was my highest rating ever? I'm not even sure about my highest rating. I never really played competitive much, and now I have an NA ranking because I haven't played in a few weeks. I think I peaked somewhere in the 1300s, 1350-ish or something like that. But yeah, I never played much competitive. I think like half the duels I even have of the few that I've played were before the rating system existed, so yeah. In terms of a skill peak, I'd say probably sometime late last year around the World Cup. That was probably when I was at the peak of my performance. And that takes us to the World Cup again. What's my favorite memory from the World Cup? And this one is easily when Consus lifted the trophy. Everyone is given a standing ovation. I mentioned this in my World Cup experience video, but I was literally on the verge of tears there, tearing up. I still get chills thinking about just how insane that moment was. It meant so much to the community, like you could just feel the energy in that room. It was insane. Baba asked me my favorite Geoguesser moment in general. It's still that's still my favorite moment. Who is the funniest Geoguesser and who is the person I associate most as my nemesis? As for a nemesis, I don't think I'd say that I have one. That's a really funny question though, honestly. Funniest Geoguesser, another good question. Someone like Deborah comes to mind. He's always a comedian. There's a streamer called Sunken City 64 who used to play the game a lot, and he would just do absolutely ludicrous challenges on his stream. He always brought great laughs and content to the community. He hasn't streamed in a while, but that was super fun whenever he was alive. That's pretty much all I got for the Geoguesser stuff, so I'm gonna go over to Chicago-specific questions now. First one from Trevor. Given that I grew up in the area, is Chicago my favorite American city? Why or why not? So yes, I did grow up in Chicago. I've lived here all 23 years of my life, and yes, it is by far my favorite American city. There is, of course, a little bit of bias in there, but also I have seen a lot of the country. I've been to 48 states, all but Alaska and Hawaii, and seen a lot of different cities as well. To me, Chicago is just everything you could want out of an American city. We have such a great cultural mix and the amazing food to go along with that. A very nice public transportation system, which is kind of hard to come by in the US. And then we've got world-class architecture, amazing museums, the neighborhoods are amazing, so many great places to live around the city. What's my favorite part about Chicago and my favorite restaurant there? Great question. There's so many good restaurants in Chicago, oh my god. My favorite part about Chicago is probably just the urban environment. I really enjoy the built environment here. The architecture is fantastic, a lot of good biking infrastructure as well. One of my favorite things to do is just ride around the city, take in the different neighborhoods and different vibes happening. Favorite restaurant is almost impossible for me to answer. That's such a good question. I'm just gonna shout out a bunch of local places, I guess, because I can't think of anything in particular. Right now I'm wearing a sweatshirt from Manny's, which is an iconic deli in the near south side, one of Obama's favorites. A lot of good German restaurants in the neighborhood I'm from, those come to mind. Ron of Japan is a really good hibachi restaurant downtown, Japanese food. Best pizza place in Chicago, I have 3 picks for this. Now, you guys probably know about deep dish Chicago pizza, but that's not really what locals eat here. We eat a thing called tavern style pizza, which is very, very thin crust, cut into small squares. That's sort of overlooked because deep dish gets all the attention, and deep dish is super overrated in my opinion. So, my favorite thin crust tavern style place is Pat's in Lincoln Park. It's an amazing, amazing thin crust spot. They have some of the best tomato sauce I've ever had bad, hands down. Then way out on the far southwest side, like 3 blocks away from the suburbs, is Vito and Nick's. That overall is really, really iconic. They have very small square cut pizza, amazing seasoning as well. Very divey local neighborhood type of place. It's such a great spot. Then for more of the deep dish, my favorite by far is Pequod's. That's the one that I actually like would go to myself. Pequod's is to die for. The crispy cheese crust at the edge of every pie. Oh my god, it's so good. Guys, try Pequod's. Simi asked if I've been to the Chicago Rat Hole yet. If not, when will I visit the Chicago Rat Hole? Incredibly enough, the Rat Hole is very close to me here on the north side, so I was able to walk to it when Simi asked this question, and I took my selfie with it. What is one piece of advice I have for someone visiting here, and what would I recommend to go see in the city? Great question. For just one piece of advice, I highly recommend just taking the CTA around, hop on the train, just go to random neighborhoods. Especially if you're staying downtown, you're in the perfect spot to just hop on the train, head to Chinatown, head to Pilsen, head up north to Lakeview, Lincoln Park. Take the Green Line out to the Garfield Park Conservatory. There are so many amazing things you can access with the CTA, and it's also just a good way to see the city as well. You see a lot of the different neighborhoods that people don't really see. They just sort of stay in the downtown West Loop bubble, museum campus, and that's all that people really see when they come here. So I always recommend, if you want the true Chicago, take the train. Norton asked me what my least favorite thing about Chicago is. That's a good question. Probably my least favorite thing about this, and this is a very serious topic, is just the legacy of like segregation and redlining here in the city that has carved it up into these really distinct areas. It really does feel like there are 2 different cities here combined as one, and that's the biggest thing that I hate about it. The inequality, the segregation. With that said, there's a lot of work that's being done to erase those lines and promote more equality and stop the crime that's happening around the city. But obviously that takes a while to sort out. It's a very nuanced thing, and yeah, not gonna get too much into it, but definitely that's my least favorite thing. Favorite Midwest city besides Chicago? Good question. Madison and Milwaukee come to mind up in Wisconsin. You guys know I love Wisconsin a lot. Milwaukee is so much like Chicago. Makes sense because we're so close together, but yeah, definitely Madison or Milwaukee. Thank you, Abdil, for this nice comment, and he asked me, would I live anywhere outside of Chicago? I would. I would live in Evanston or Oak Park or something, one of the suburbs immediately next to it, so I could still go to Chicago. Geoguesser takes the suburbs out of the equation here. If I could live anywhere in the US outside of Chicagoland, where would it be? That's a good question. I would strongly consider Madison or Milwaukee, absolutely. I would also consider like New York. I really like New York, of course. Feels a lot like Chicago in certain ways. Let's switch gears now a bit and talk about questions for content creation, college, things like that. First question here from US Geoguesser Professor. What is the legend of Big Beef Cow, and why do we love him so much? That's a good question. I realize I haven't really explained that too well for the YouTube folks. There really isn't that much of a deep backstory to it. Essentially, I was doing a Twitch stream where I would have people send me just weird things in Google Maps. Big Beef Cow was one of the locations that someone sent in, and I could not stop laughing when I clicked on this, just mainly because the POI said Big Beef Cow. Honestly, it kind of confuses me as well, like how it became so popular. Like, I just found it really funny, and then all of a sudden he's become like a mascot of the channel. Jess Pinko asks what the best comment or chat message I've ever gotten is, and what comes to mind immediately for me is a comment left on my Turkey Country Spotlight video. I won't spoil the video if you decide to watch it, but basically someone left a comment explaining that in one of the rounds I got, I saw their local milkman in the location. This was in this commenter's like local area of Turkey that they lived in as a kid, and they'd buy milk from this guy, and the commenter left a really heartfelt message, just like thinking nostalgically back to their childhood. That's one of the reasons why I like Geoguesser so much, is just like the humanity aspect of it. You just see everyday life happening in Geoguesser. It's really cool. A few questions about college. Celestia asked me what I majored in college, and if I have any advice for getting into top colleges here in the US. So I graduated from the University of Chicago last June, and I majored in environmental and urban studies, which is basically urban planning with a bit more of like the environmental aspect thrown in there. In terms of advice for getting into top colleges, that's a hard question for me to answer. For me personally, when I was in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do in college. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I'd always done really well in school. I was a fast learner. I got a really good SAT score, and I just still had no clue what I wanted to do with it. I applied to a bunch of the best schools, and I got rejected from Harvard, Yale, Cornell, even Michigan rejected me. The big reason I got into UChicago, I think, is because I had a lot of demonstrated interest for the school. Over the summer one year, I did like an after-school program working with the school, and then I wrote one of my application essays about that experience. I think it's really important to demonstrate your enthusiasm about a school or any connections in that sort of sense. I got rejected from Harvard and Yale because I just applied to them knowing they're the best schools. I had no real desire to actually go there. I just applied because I knew, hey, I got a good SAT, maybe it'll take me. Someone asked me how I got into geography in general and what inspired me to major in urban studies. Essentially, my answer is I've just always loved geography. Literally, as long as I can remember, it's been probably my favorite thing in the world. When I was in preschool, my parents got me atlases for my birthday. That's what I wanted, was atlases experiences so I can learn more about the Earth. Just like some kids know from a young age they want to be a singer or a dancer or to be a doctor, I knew that I liked geography and cities, and that's what I've stuck with my whole life. Speaking of UChicago essays, this is a question from Ultratech, which is one of the UChicago application essays. Who are some other creators in the American geography space I enjoy? Immediately coming to mind, Geography King. I had the pleasure of meeting him in Chicago a couple years ago when he was filming a video here, and he's a super nice guy. He makes amazing videos about American travel, geography. What is the most memorable fan interaction I've ever had, good or bad? Also, did you ever think you would come this far, content creating wise? For sure, the most memorable and random thing is one night I needed to make a late night Target run, and I was in line for the self-checkout, and someone taps on my shoulder from behind me. I turn around, and they ask me if I'm CG, and I'm like, holy crap, what? This was the last time I was ever expecting anyone to know who I was, and like, I was wearing a hat, I had my glasses on too, and just, I was not expecting it at all, but it was really cool. In terms of coming this far with content creation, I never really expected that I'd get this far, but I'd always like dreamed for myself to be here, and I've always made it a life goal of mine to make content creation a job. So yeah, I never really thought or expected it, but it's definitely a goal that I've worked toward, and I'm very, very thankful that I'm in this position that I am now. A couple people asked me what my favorite video is that I've made so far. Another really, really good question. What immediately comes to mind here is probably the state high points video. That one went viral when I wasn't expecting it to, and I'm really, really proud of that video and very thankful again that that even happened. I don't think that's my favorite video in terms of like quality or anything though, so it's hard to say honestly. I don't think I've really made that one video that I'm like, yeah, this is my magnum opus yet. I think in general, I'm really proud of a lot of like the geography edutainment videos I've made. They've really helped propel my channel to where it is now. Would I be open to a fan meetup with the community? Absolutely I would. I've been meaning to do something like this for a while. I'm not sure we have really a big enough community yet to do something quite so big, but definitely something sort of low-key, maybe here in Chicago one day. I would so be down. What is one thing I wish my community would do? That's a good question. It's kind of a weird one for me to answer. It feels like something I shouldn't really say, but I guess what I'd say is if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. When I check analytics, especially on some of my more popular videos, so many people who watch just aren't subscribed. If everyone who watches all my videos subscribed, we could get to 100K within a couple of months, which would be amazing. So guys, subscribe. More generally though, hop in the Discord server or something if you're not in there. Say hi. I've tried really hard over the years to build Discord into a cool community for you guys, so make sure to check that out if you're not there. Another one from Jaspier. If time and money weren't a constraint, what is the ultimate video or creative endeavor I would want to make? If I had absolutely no constraints at all, I'd want to have some sort of production studio, something like that. I want to rent out a big like warehouse space or something where I can continue making videos for this channel, but then also focus efforts into like vlogging content, travel things, IRL challenges, more high quality edutainment videos. I would love to hire like a production team to help me work on all these things. That's what I want to do. That's my dream job, is just having a giant warehouse and it's just completely dedicated to geography content. Some more very heavy hitting existential questions here. Where do I envision myself in 10 years? Explain. I think about this a lot. In 10 years, I'll be 33, turning 34, which is crazy. So at that age, just like generally for life, I would love to have a wife and a kid or two. I've always wanted to start a family, so that's definitely a goal of mine. In terms of like a career, I hope that at the very least I'm still doing YouTube or something in that capacity part-time. I always envision myself still being in Chicago. I have no plans to leave the city anytime soon. I love it here, and if I can stay here my entire life, I absolutely would. On the opposite side of this, how do I think I would react 10 years ago if I told him this is what I was doing right now? 10 years ago, I'd be in 7th grade, just before I started my first YouTube channel, which I started in 2014. So in January 2014, if you told me this, I would be pretty shocked. I'd be amazed, absolutely. I think I'd be a little bit less surprised than if you told me, like, say, 15 years ago. Because 10 years ago, I was starting to get into the thought process of, hey, I kind of like making videos. This is kind of fun. Maybe I should start a YouTube channel. A few people asked me what I would be doing or what I'm thinking about besides YouTube in terms of a career or work. In terms of Danny's question, if I think I'd still be a YouTuber if Geoguesser didn't exist, I absolutely would, hands down. If Geoguesser wasn't around, I'd be making just general geography edutainment content. In terms of career plans, I've got my urban studies degree from UChicago, so I definitely would like to make use of that in some capacity down the line, work for some sort of government department. But as of right now, I've been putting a lot of my time and energy into creating content, trying to make this work. It's sort of working. Bailey asked me how my parents, siblings, or other family members think of me being in content creation. That's a good question. I'm really thankful that they've been incredibly supportive. They know that I am super passionate about this stuff, and they've seen the success that it's brought me and how happy it makes me. I'm forever thankful that they actually tolerate me doing this, like recording and streaming all the time and and whatever. I know there's a lot of stigma, especially in the past, about YouTube being a job, but I'm really thankful that they see the true opportunity in that. What inspired me to start YouTube, and was there any fear behind it that I eventually overcame? And yeah, I was pretty young when I started. This channel, I was 18, but when I first started on YouTube, I was 13. I was in 7th grade. That was my Pokemon channel, which I have not talked about very much, but those of you who saw my subathon earlier this month, you guys know. But what inspired me to start it is honestly, I was a huge Pokemon fan as a kid, and seeing all the different Pokemon channels, especially for like cards and Let's Play stuff. As a kid, I was a lot less confident in sort of like my public speaking, I would say, but I always felt like I could do it, so making YouTube videos was sort of a way for me to practice in that sense. Even just a few years ago when I first did my face reveal, I was really nervous, like having my face on camera and streaming live like that. I felt like I had it in me to give it a shot, and I'm super glad I've stuck with it for 10 years. Realistic or not, who would be my dream collaboration partners within Geoguesser and within all of YouTube? So within Geoguesser, hands down, Geowizard. He's for sure one of the biggest and by far the most iconic person in the community that I haven't had the chance to work with in some capacity. Within all of YouTube, I would absolutely love the chance to work with someone like Tom Scott. He just retired, but I would love to work with someone like that. I know a lot of people really like the jet lag game that's going on right now. I would love to be on that show as well someday. That would be really fun. What kept me going when I had no motivation? Man, these questions, heavy hitters. There were a lot of times, especially when I was in university, that I had absolutely no motivation left. Not only for school, but also, to admit it, for YouTube as well. I felt completely burned out, like I had nothing left to make. Honestly, what keeps me going on the YouTube side is just knowing the community that we built here and how much it means to people that I create videos at all, which is crazy to me. Like, I still can't believe people actually enjoy the videos I make. Where do I see my future in Geoguesser and this channel? Do I have any big projects or ideas on the horizon? I have a lot of ideas always swimming around my head for what I can do to improve the channel, improve my Geoguesser skills. As of right now, I don't want to give anything away, but I'm putting a lot of effort into my edutainment videos this year. Things like the High Points videos, the Longest Rivers video in the US, that did really well. Alright, here's some general questions about travel and stuff like that. Bendy asked me if I've ever visited a location solely because I saw it in Geoguesser, and if not, has the game ever made me want to? I don't know if this counts, but Big Beef Cow I saw for the first time in Street View. It wasn't in a Geoguesser game, but it was on Street View, and I did go visit it last summer. I think that almost counts, right? It's like Geoguesser adjacent. I'm gonna say that. Where would I live if I could choose a country other than the UK and the US? That's a great question. I'd probably say Canada, honestly, just so I'm close to the US. If I had to go for something truly foreign, France or Japan, Australia, I don't know, something like that. I've never really thought about this. But yeah, if you guys don't know, I am a dual citizen of the UK and the US, which is, I assume, why Trilotus asked me that. Kind of speaking of Australia, have I ever been to Australia? And if not, then would I be interested? Absolutely, I've always wanted to go to Australia. Some questions about what I would like to travel to next, anywhere in the world, and I would absolutely want to go to Japan. That's my #1 destination right now. It always has been, honestly. Another thing, if you don't know this about me, I am of part Japanese ancestry. I'm a quarter Japanese, and I would absolutely love to see where in Japan my family came from. If I remember right, they're from the Yamanashi prefecture, and yeah, I'd just love to visit that. See all of the country, honestly. It's such an amazing place. What's my favorite place in New England? If you don't say Worcester, I'll cry. Unfortunately, I've not been there, so. But yeah, in terms of where I've been, Maine was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I'd probably have to say Maine. Out by Freeport, the coast around there is so beautiful. What's my favorite small town in the US? Banana Peel Seal goes for population of an urban area under 50K. This is an incredibly hard question to answer. There's so many cool little towns in the US. Galena, Illinois is like a historic, very cool little town. But yeah, I wouldn't say that's my favorite necessarily, but I'm sorry for the kind of no response here, but that is hard to think of. Do I like beer, and will I ever visit Croatia? Absolutely, I love beer. It's probably my drink of choice, and Croatia is very high up on my Europe bucket list, so yeah, definitely would love to head to Croatia, maybe try some Croatian beer. I've been surprised to hear you shout out my hometowns of Leeds and Wakefield in videos, mostly because people from here don't even shout them out. But what's my favorite place in Yorkshire as a whole? Great question. Leeds and Wakefield, that's the area where my British family is from. I'm half British. I'd imagine they don't get shouted out too much domestically within the UK, but I like it up there. Not sure that they're necessarily my favorite places in Yorkshire. I really like the moors out by Ilkley. Those are super fun to explore. I love climbing on the rocks out there. Scarborough as well is very cool. Again, my great nana used to live there. Nice little seaside resort town. Very touristy, but again, I have a lot of good memories there, so Scarborough comes to mind as well. Favorite places or neat things I've seen in the middle to the bottom of the state of Illinois. That's a cool one. Yeah, downstate, I've been to Springfield a lot. I have a lot of family in Springfield. So Springfield is a cool city. Kind of not much to do there, but Springfield is cool. What else is cool? Garden of the Gods way south is amazing. Super beautiful part of the state. really one of the only beautiful parts of the state. What else? What else is in South Illinois? Cahokia Mounds by St. Louis is really cool. What is the best food I've had in each state, or maybe just a few select ones that stood out? Another really good question. I'm gonna sit here and think for a little bit. Bear with me. I'm thinking of like states near me. When I was in Wisconsin one time, we were just driving around the driftless area looking at fall foliage, and we stopped at this local bar in Spring Green and had the best cheese curds I've ever had in my life. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it doesn't get much better than small town bar Wisconsin cheese curds. So good, man. Another one I just thought of randomly. When I was in North Dakota, this is so random, but driving through North Dakota, we stopped in Dickinson for dinner, and again, just went to a random bar, and I had amazing wings, like the best wings I've ever had. The last place I ever expected to find good food in the middle of North Dakota, but yeah, the wings were fantastic. I forget the name of the bar, but it was really good. Dickinson, North Dakota. Fantastic barbecue in Texas, of course. Really, really good stuff. The lobster I had in Maine was just so much better than anything I can get in Chicago. Absolutely. What's the most overrated city and underrated city I've been to? Man, hard question. I might get some hate for this. Also because I went there when I was 16, but I'm gonna say Austin. I'm not sure how much Austin lives up to the hype. I should probably go back as an adult and see it more. But yeah, I feel like Austin wasn't anything that special. It's nice, but I mean, it gets so much hype, and I'm not really sure what it's all for. Underrated city. Underrated city. I don't know if I'm allowed to say Chicago for this, but knowing Chicago's bad reputation, especially abroad, I'd say Chicago. If I'm not allowed to say Chicago, oh, here's one. Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids is cool. It's a pretty small city, but up in Michigan, I don't know. I had a great time in Grand Rapids. I didn't really know too much of what to expect, but yeah, really cool stuff up in Grand Rapids, I'd say that. Least favorite place that I've been? That's hard for me to answer. I can't even think of a place that I've been, and I'm like, wow, this sucks. This is terrible. There was one time I was on a road trip with my friends, and we stayed in this Airbnb in the suburbs of Dayton, and it was terrible. It was the cheapest Airbnb we could find that would accommodate like all 5 or 6 of us that were there. It was this tiny house, and the attic was completely haunted. We had to go up there because one of the beds was there, and in the middle of the attic is just this TV sitting square in the middle of the attic. Tons of random electric outlets in the room as well. What countries have I visited so far, and which did I like the best? I'm gonna try to rattle them off. Let's see. Obviously the US, then Canada, Iceland, the UK of course, Sweden, Germany, Switzerland, Liechtenstein. I drove through Austria to get to Germany from Switzerland. France, Belgium, Italy, the Vatican. And then, like, airport layovers, I had connections in Dublin, in Ireland, Denmark, and Finland. In terms of what I liked the best, probably Iceland, I would say. Yeah, that definitely was amazing. Iceland was so cool. Finishing up the video with some more random questions. Do I wear wigs? Have I worn wigs? Will I wear wigs? And when will I wear wigs? Some biking questions here. Slither is correct. I do have a bike. Biking is probably one of my biggest hobbies outside of Geoguesser geography. The farthest distance I've ever biked is with my friends during the pandemic. We made a huge plan to bike all the way to the driftless area in Wisconsin to an area called the Blue Mounds. For biking, that is really far away, and also in a very hilly area too. The first leg of the trip, we got as far as Harvard, Illinois, which was like 75 miles from the north side of Chicago. That was the farthest I'd ever biked, and I was so exhausted that day. But I absolutely love biking, and to answer JD's question, I try to bike at least a couple times a week. That's like my main form of like cardio exercise. Weekly bike stats, I try to go for a ride sort of like this. I'll put this up on screen. Yeah, sort of like a 15-20 mile ride. That's what I try to go for. Alright, some questions about music now. Have I ever been to a concert? And if so, what's the best concert I've been to? Unfortunately, I haven't been to very many concerts. By the time I was getting into concerts and stuff, which was like tail end of high school, starting up to college, then COVID happened. So that kind of ruined everything for me. Before that though, I'd just been to a couple concerts, mainly with my dad. I saw the Pixies with him, which was pretty cool. I'm actually a pretty big fan of them. I saw Radiohead as well, which were cool shows. Generally, who is my favorite singer or band? A hard question for me to answer. New Order comes to mind. I really like New Order, especially their Substance compilation album. Probably my favorite music of all time right there. What's my favorite musician from Japan, UK, and the USA? UK, New Order takes it. Japan is a band that, I think technically they're American, but Chibumatsu, formed by Japanese expats. Kind of obscure band, but I have my mom to thank for introducing me to them. They're really great. Stereotype A, one of the best albums I've ever listened to, quite frankly, it's so good. From the USA, probably The Strokes, Green Day, maybe some like 70s, 80s rock bands as well. I don't know, that's a harder one for me. A lot of good artists from the US. A couple language questions here. Work asked me how many languages do I speak? I speak pretty much just one, English, of course. I used to be like very casual conversationally okay in French. My French experience in school was kind of unfortunate because I was in AP French my freshman year of high school, and that was the highest they offered, of course. So after that, I had no more classes to take. Ever since then, I've just forgotten a lot of my French, so we'll give it a 1.1 languages, the tiny little bit of French that I can still do. And then Geoguesser asked me if I could wake up perfectly fluent in a language, which would it be? Definitely France. I would love to be able to actually be fluent in French. What's my favorite book? A wonderful question. I used to read so much as a kid. Like, that was... I could not stop reading. I would say what comes to mind is definitely a book called A Mango-Shaped Space. Now, this is kind of obscure, but it's about synesthesia, which you maybe have heard of, but essentially is a crossing of the senses, and for me, I have color grapheme synesthesia. Another entire thing I could spend a whole video talking about, but basically, when I read any letters or numbers, I see the color that the words actually are. Like, Potato's question here is in white text, but all the letters have their own colors that I see as well as the white, and I see them like on the letter, superimposed. It's really hard to explain. But anyway, A Mango-Shaped Space is about synesthesia, a girl who has it. It's a fictional book, but it helped me learn a lot about what synesthesia was, and yeah, just really spoke to me as a kid, especially in my like adolescent years. Putting that aside though, either Percy Jackson series or The Hunger Games. Do you think you could land an airplane in an emergency? I probably could. I want to say I could. Realistically, I'd probably crash and kill everyone on board, but no, I could do it. Have I ever had any pets? And if so, could you share some pet pictures? Absolutely I can. I currently have 2 cats named Sachi and Ben, and in fact, I'll go show you them right now. Here's Benny. Hi, Benny. Oh, hello. Yes, and Sachi is here too. Hi, Sachi. Where are you going? Yeah, they're kind of crazy cats. They're getting a little bit old. They're turning 12 this year, which is insane. I got them when I was 12, and now they're turning 12. That's crazy, man. What's the nicest thing someone's done for you? Really good question. Well, I think what comes to mind first, this is sort of like tied to college application stuff, but when I was a junior in high school, again, I had no clue really what I wanted to do in terms of college, and junior year is like when you really got to start thinking about it, start applying to schools. I was taking a law class in high school. First of all, huge shout out to the teacher, Miss Sebastian. She's an absolute legend for this. There's a scholarship called Posse, which operates in a few cities in the US, and it's meant to give students who might not have the opportunity a path forward to a really good education. It's a really unique sort of scholarship process where, as the name implies, you're put into like a posse of people from your city, and you're sort of like working with them, but then also competing with them for spots in this scholarship. But the end result is a full ride to whatever school they match you with, which is absolutely insane. You have to be nominated by a teacher, and I'd never heard of this scholarship at all. Miss Sebastian, though, out of pure kindness, nominated me for the Posse Scholarship, and I was so thankful for that. Because again, at this point, I just had no idea what I was doing with school, and I think maybe she understood that or recognized some potential in me. I made it to the very final round of Posse, and almost had a full ride to Cornell, which would have been insane, but I didn't get it. I didn't get it in the end, but I'm so thankful for that opportunity. Some food questions here. What is my ultimate comfort food? Oh, great question. Definitely one of the recipes that runs in my family. There's a flank steak, a butterfly flank steak recipe that's so good. Whenever my mom or anyone makes that in the family, it's delicious, man. More squarely on the Japanese side of things, there's a dish called donburi, which is really good. It's a very simple sort of chicken dish with broth that you put over rice, and it is delicious. It is warm, it's great in the winter. What's the best McDonald's sandwich? I'm not gonna lie, I don't go to McDonald's very much, and when I do, I get like nuggets. So, I don't know. Do I have a Costco membership? I do have a Costco membership. Costco's awesome. Great place to stock up on the essentials. Would you ever consider consuming Altoona-style pizza? If you guys don't know Altoona-style pizza, here's a picture. It's... what the hell is that? I would consider it just to know what it tastes like before I die. Maybe that would be the thing that kills me. But yeah, I'd consider it. Pokemon questions here. You play a lot of Pokemon music during your streams. Do you play a lot of Pokemon? And if so, which game is your favorite? Yes, I do play a lot of Pokemon, or at least I used to. I'm an absolute diehard Pokemon fan, and the music is probably one of my favorite things about the games, which is why I use it as music on my streams. My favorite game is just the Generation 4 games, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and then the Mystery Dungeon game, Explorers of Darkness, Sky, Time. Those are such good games. Like, unironically, some of the best music and story of any video game out there, any media item at all. And then Apollo asks what my favorite Pokemon is. here's my answer. What's my favorite movie or TV show or both that I watched in 2023? Excellent question. I watched a lot of new movies this year. What comes to mind immediately is the Dark Knight trilogy. I'd been meaning to watch that for years. I finally sat down and did it over Christmas. Christopher Nolan, Christian Bale, they did great jobs. Heath Ledger, of course. So yeah, those were really, really great movies. Did Better Call Saul end last year? If so, then Better Call Saul, absolutely. Final season of that was crazy. I saw Across the Spider-Verse in theaters with my sister, which was awesome. Such a great movie. The animation is just, oh my god, so good. What is my favorite bathroom that is not in Cameroon? Definitely Buckingham Fountain, here in Chicago. Have you taken the rice purity test? If so, what was your score? I've taken it before. I don't remember my score, so let me just take it again right now. You guys probably don't want to know my answers to the questions, so I'm not going to show it, but let me just take it now. 65. Bailey asks if I've ever had a girlfriend. Yes, I have. Bailey says he hasn't. I'm sure you'll find someone, Bailey. I believe in you, man. You got this. Well, I've answered a lot of questions. This video hopefully won't be too long. I'm going to try to cut it down as much as I can. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question or I didn't answer it in the way you wanted. But again, thank you all so much for the questions. Had a lot of fun answering these, and hopefully this was entertaining to you. And again, an absolutely huge thank you to all of you who have supported the channel for the last half of a decade. I can't believe we've made it this far, and it means so much that you guys are here supporting the channel and everything that I'm doing here. With that said, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.